everybody. It's Marla Martenson, and you are watching another episode of Conversations with Cupid. And today I am with Meadow Linn. Woohoo! I am so excited. I can't wait for this interview. So, everybody, if you don't know who Meadow is, she is an accomplished chef who's been sharing her love of food since she was old enough to crawl into the cupboards to pull out ingredients. She teaches cooking both in the USA and internationally, and she's the co-author of the Mystic Chef Culinary Training. And with her mother, Denise Linn, they co-authored 2 Hay House books, Quest and the Mystic Cookbook. And I love her mother. I love your mother, Denise Linn.
Hey,
What a wonderful combination, mother and daughter. And Meadow says it's not just what you eat, but also the way you eat can transform you in miraculous ways. I was reading some of the Amazon reviews today on the book, and I love this. One reader said, "It's more of a cookbook about life perspective and connecting to the magic around us, offering a gateway for our spiritual journeys. Wonderful recipes, yes, but much more. The authors explain how infusing meals with intention can affect the mood and energy of those at the table." And
that's nice.
Isn't that wonderful? I love that, because when we think about our society now, we're just grabbing something to eat, maybe at fast food, Subway or McDonald's or whatever happens to be quick, and it doesn't look like people are slowing down on the fast food stuff. People have families trying to eat cheap, and we do have a lot of issues with digestion and problems with the stomach and everything. So just how did you get into doing this type of work and adding spirituality into cooking?
Well, as you said, I've been passionate about food and goes hand in hand eating since I can remember. My earliest childhood memories are about, as you said, crawling into the cupboards, and it's kind of a family joke that every memory pretty much that I have is connected to food in some way. It's kind of a party trick. Ask Meadow what she ate, in 1998 in Maine. So it's something I've been passionate about for years. And actually, the summer after graduating high school, I started catering my mom's workshops. At that time, she was doing an intensive training that was 2 weeks long called Interior Alignment, where she was teaching people to be feng shui and space clearing practitioners. And I did all of the cooking for those 2-week seminars all throughout the summer. So I started that at 18 years old, and I've continued to do that for, well, I'm not so good at the math on that, but I think 18 or 19 more years, and 'cause I'm 37 now. And she has changed. She's no longer teaching that. She's teaching something else, but I've continued to cook for those events. And what was interesting is in the beginning, I thought that, well, let me take a step back. What I realized is that it was more than just the food. At first, I was 18, I thought it's good food, people like it. And that's true, but there's more that goes to it. People so often would say, this is the best fill in the blank I've ever had. And, on one hand, my 18-year-old self is thinking, that's a tuna fish sandwich. Nothing special. But what we realized is that it was the experience. It wasn't just the food, and the food was really good, and, using high-quality ingredients, making sure you're getting things that are local and cared for, but it goes beyond that. It was the experience of eating. We made food a celebration. We have lots of different dishes that we use at our ranch, which is where we hold the retreats, and so we have different colored plates and placemats that we use with each meal. And we kind of think of the place setting as almost like a mini altar, a frame for the meal. Just how, a painting is beautiful on its own, but suddenly when you put a frame around it, it is enhanced tenfold. And it's the same with meals. And then the fact that we were eating in community with a group of people, that heightened the experience, and every meal became celebration. And another interesting thing was for one of our retreats, I was actually a school teacher for 8 years, so I didn't cook year-round, just in the summers. So for one of the retreats that was not during the summer, there was a different cook. And at one time, she came to my mom in tears. And she said, you know, I work so hard to create these beautiful meals, and I'm putting so much of myself and so much love, and everybody rushes in and they grab the food and they sit down and they just start eating. And she said, I really don't feel as though my gift is being honored and the food is being honored. So at that point, my mom decided that we would say a blessing before every meal, you know, a form of grace. And when we do that, we go back to kind of the beginning, the origins of the food, and bless the farmers and the seeds and the sun and the rain and the people who drove it to market and stocked the grocery shelves and the clerks. And then, of course, the person who cooked the food and the, you know, divine God, universe, spirit, and all of those aspects that went into it, and realized that that actually brought people together in community, and it deepened everybody's experience of the food. So all of those, this is a very long way of answering your question, but all of those aspects are kind of how I got into spirituality and cooking, blending the two together.
Yeah, and even I do Reiki, and some of the things I've read, you know, it says you can even put Reiki, put your hands above your food and, you know, infuse it with Reiki energy, and that's sort of like a blessing or prayer, you know, however you want to do it, which is beautiful and wonderful. And then in your book, you talk about how to draw in things into your life through your cooking and eating. For instance, since I'm a matchmaker, I love to talk about love, and there's a lot of people out there who are looking for love, and they'll cook or have somebody over for dinner. But what's your take on cooking and finding love? There's a
Oh my goodness,
there's a connection there.
Very long time about this, but I know we have a limited time, so I will try to rein myself in. But you know, with any sort of love, as I'm sure you have found in your business, that it starts with self-love and also opening your heart to love, which are two very important things: being receptive to receiving love, and then also giving and receiving it to yourself. So I am passionate about people taking the time to create delicious meals for themselves. We talk a lot about self-care, getting a massage, doing yoga, going for a walk, but a really key element of taking care of yourself is eating well. And we talk about eating well, making sure you get enough vegetables, take the right vitamins, have your green smoothie, but there's also the way that you eat. And that's often the key component that is missing. How often, I mean, I've done it too. You know, you open the refrigerator, and you start eating, standing in front of the refrigerator, or you're walking and eating, or eating in your car, and you're not mindful of what you're eating, you're not slowing down, and your body's not really recognizing the fact that you're having a meal because it is so mindless. So one of my first things is treating yourself like that loved one that you would like to have in your house. And so often, you know, I've been single for a very long time, and it's easy to think, oh, if only I could have romantic candlelight dinners or have this. Well, create that for yourself. So often I will make a multi-course meal for myself for dinner. I'll sit down with a glass of wine, light some candles, and have that romantic meal that I longed for. And the other side of that is so often, you know, I'm sure you've experienced this with your clients, you know, you want, and you make your lists of all the characteristics you want in your perfect match. And we forget the fact that what really it's not about the checklists. It's really about that feeling. What does that person make you feel like? What is that feeling you get in that relationship? So creating these special meals can give you that feeling, and it's not just in meditation or prayer thinking about, oh, what's the feeling, but actually feeling it when you create that meal. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh,
but
yeah, and the list, too. I always talk about that when I discuss dating, that list. People get too long of a list, and, you know, down to the height, the eye color, the career, this and that. And even food, it's very interesting because I'm in Southern California. My guys are the high-end millionaires who want the beautiful woman, and sometimes I'll get a guy I had one guy, he owned a vineyard, and he loved good food, and he was always at events, and so he wanted a super thin lady, much younger and beautiful, but she had to drink wine, eat meat, all this stuff. And a lot of the girls out here, they're into yoga, they're vegans or vegetarians. They're looking so good because they're really taking care of themselves. And so I think, and I just matched a girl who's a vegan with a non-vegan just now before we got on this call, and he's like, "Oh no, is she an angry vegan?" You know, I tried it for 3 months, and I said it shouldn't matter. You don't even have to bring it up. I just wanted to let you know so you could pick a place with some nice, good salads. You know, so I think people will even choose, well, they don't eat like I do, so I can't meet them, or we can't be a couple. And I'm vegan, my husband's not. He'll even eat worm tacos when we're in Mexico City. You know, he'll really go for it. So I just say, don't kiss me for a couple hours after you eat those worms. But and then another thing that you're talking about, take the time for yourself. I'm a big juicer, so I'll be at the grocery store with all my vegetables, and sometimes the checkout person will say, "What are you going to do with all those vegetables?" I said, "Well, I juice them." And then people in line, or that I've heard before, they'll say, "Oh, I had to have a juicer, but it was too much work. It took too much time. It took too much time to clean it." And I said, my health is worth the 5 minutes that it takes to clean the machine and the 10 minutes that it takes to prepare everything. I'm worth 15 minutes a day. So
that's a very good point.
Yeah, I know we're busy, but we really, the food, what we put in our bodies is everything.
And you also, when you were asking me the question, you asked about intention. So I wanted to jump in and talk about that too. So there's the one side of creating that kind of self-love that opens your heart, makes you more receptive to love, but also when you're cooking, you can put intention into that meal to create a love-filled meal. And, you know, of course, as you know, and your listeners hopefully know as well too, that you can't compel somebody to love you, but you can open your heart, you can infuse love into the dishes to create a space for more love. And I have a little story. This was, I think, just last summer. I was catering for a group, and I was making a new recipe, a chocolate pudding, and I was using coconut milk instead, so it actually is vegan. And as I was stirring it, I imagined my heart opening, and I kind of imagined the love like pouring out of my heart, down my arm, into the spoon. And this is actually a great exercise to do with children, too. I love doing it with them because they are so open to this kind of thing. So I was imagining this kind of swirling red, pink energy going into this chocolate pudding. And while I was doing that, I had this visual image of everybody at the retreat taking a bite of this chocolate pudding and just going, oh, oh, oh. So I was, pouring my love into it and imagining the love that they would feel eating it. And the amazing thing was, and I kid you not, when each woman, I think there was only women in that course, took a bite, they literally made those moans and groans that I had pictured stirring into it. So that's another thing you can do. And it can be with love or any other intention. And stirring is a great way, too, because of the spiraling motion. You picture it kind of coming from your heart, down your arm, into it. And even I have a little incantation that you can say. And this one's right out of the Mystic Cookbook. That so you can say this, and I have to read it. But,
yes, please.
As you stir. So it's, with this food we dine, greater love thus does shine. As I work this magic spell, into deeper love we dwell. I invoke the law of love, calling greater light from above.
Oh, so that's beautiful.
Say that as you're stirring the chocolate pudding or the soup or whatever you're making, but I especially love it with chocolate pudding.
Ooh, I'm going to do that. I'll do it with my soup.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And then you also talk about bringing in, if you want more money, or abundance. The same thing.
Exactly. It's when you cook with intention, a great way for abundance. As you're peeling the vegetables, imagine peeling away the things that no longer serve you. Or as you're chopping, you're cutting, we have this, cutting the fat, that, cut it away, what you don't need. And then depending on your interpretation of abundance, what feels abundant to you, create a meal that feels really opulent and abundant. And maybe for somebody, that's like a king's feast where you have lots, like Thanksgiving, lots and lots of food. But for somebody else, it might be a meal that's very spare. Mm-hmm. Because there's that idea of, you know, you have enough and you're choosing the highest quality of whatever it is. It's like that perfectly pristine Japanese meal where everything is aligned. So it's whatever feels abundant to you. And then you might choose to, if you have citrine around, put citrine on the table, which is a stone that's often associated with abundance.
Yes.
Or decorate your table in green. Green is a color that's associated with abundance because it's so abundant in nature. So either make a green meal or use green tablecloth, and all of those different factors can create a meal dedicated to abundance. You can also make affirmations. You can either get oracle cards or make your own affirmations and put them under everybody's plate. It's always really fun, and put them out randomly so it's like a fortune cookie. And then each person finds their affirmation under their plate, and you can either connect them to an abundance meal so they're all around abundance and bounty, or you can, whatever the theme of your meal is for different aspects, you can do the affirmations, and that's really fun too.
That's a great idea, and then everyone could read them and talk about it. It's great. And then even I think bringing in something I saw on Facebook, you put your little eggplant, your little mini eggplant, a picture of it. I have one too, just one little lone mini eggplant that grew out there. I'm trying to get a bigger plant, but maybe bringing in some herbs from your own garden that you've tended to with love, and add that is great.
Or mint. Mint grows in abundance. Once you plant mint, you can't stop it. So that could be another sign of abundance if you're focusing on an abundance meal.
Oh, that's great. There are some dandelion greens that are I use them in my juice, and I know you can put them in salads. I see them growing like out, between your yard and the sidewalk, that other section. In some people's yards, I'm thinking of picking some out there.
Yeah, well, and that could be great too. A wonderful sign of not only abundance but resilience. I'm always so amazed to see dandelions growing out of nothing.
Right.
They're growing out of a little tiny crack in the pavement. And so if you ever want something to kind of look toward as as an image to focus on of resilience and pushing against all odds, that's a really powerful image, I think.
Yeah, and
then
dandelions,
taking that into your body.
And they're like always, people are trying to kill them all the time. I feel bad for those. They really get a bad rap, those dandelions. So what else is in your cookbook? You've got the recipes, and do you have a section on spirituality?
It is woven throughout. It is really more of a cookbook for life. There are recipes, but it is more about how you approach food in all aspects of your life, and kind of eating with a mind, body, spirit approach. Not just kind of the woo-woo idea, mind, body, spirit is often synonymous with New Age spirituality, but also, so it's that, but also really looking at the eating process as a mind, body, which is what most of us see food as. It's simple nourishment. It's taking in calories so that you can sustain yourself. So it's the mind, body, and the spirit component. Mm-hmm. And all three of those need to work in harmony to live balanced lives. And food is such a powerful conduit for that, because it's something that we do every single day. And it is so physical. It is something that helps our body. But also when you eat with intention and mindfulness, and you're really conscious, I guess, about the food that you eat and how you eat it, it can open up so many more, it is a spiritual act.
Yeah, and I think people who are struggling with weight, I think if you'll sit down and maybe do a little meditation or prayer first and breathe, and if you're thinking about eating that bag of chips or that, sloppy Joe or the piece of cheesecake, you can kind of check in with your body. Is this really going to serve me? Is this going to nourish my body? And maybe think a little bit first and take some time with yourself. I think that would help a lot, because a lot of times we just get that craving, then we eat it, and then we feel guilty, and then we eat more, and it's a big cycle. But I think your book will help a lot of people even with weight, because becoming mindful.
When you slow down, you actually taste your food.
Yes.
Sometimes, too, the slower you go, when you really are tasting it, you realize that a lot of stuff that we eat mindlessly in big handfuls doesn't actually taste very good. I did a workshop with Janine Roth, and she gave us a Hershey's or Hershey's Kiss, to eat very, very slowly. First unwrapping it and smelling it and then putting it on your tongue. And the amazing thing is you realize it actually doesn't taste very good. But we're so quick to eat that we don't always notice it, which I think is interesting. You know, I do that too, like, oh.
Yeah, and especially once we start maybe drinking fresh vegetable juices and drinking and eating organic and eating clean foods, the palate changes back to the way it was meant to be, and the things with the chemicals and the colorings, and it won't be as tasty anymore.
That's true. That happens too.
Yeah.
You know, what's interesting too is the emotions that we're feeling. This goes back to food being a mind, body, and spirit experience. Actually affect how we metabolize our food. They did a study at a university where they hired some actors to have a pizza meal together. And before the meal, they measured their blood cholesterol and all their other statistics. And they had this pizza meal where it was two couples, and they were playing it being long-lost friends, so happy to see each other. And afterwards, they measured their blood cholesterol levels. And they were, of course, elevated because they just had a pizza dinner. And, you know, they weighed the cheese and made it all very scientific. But the blood cholesterol levels quickly dissipated afterwards because they were feeling so much joy while they were having the meal. And then they had the same actors play two couples meeting for pizza, but this time they were enemies.
Oh.
And they did this, you know, they measured out the cheese, they had the same amount of pizza, and then they measured their blood cholesterol, and it was elevated again, but it didn't dissipate. That emotion of anger actually affected how they metabolized the food and how it affected their body later. So the more joy that you feel when you're eating, you know, whether you're eating pizza or a fast food hamburger or organic kale from your local purveyor, you know, the more, and it's not, you know, licensed to necessarily only eat whatever, you know, all the quote-unquote bad-for-you foods, but whatever you're eating, the more joy and acceptance you feel for yourself, for the food, as you're eating it, it actually will metabolize better in your body, and I just think that's so fascinating.
Yeah, they always do say don't eat while you're upset or in an argument, too, because the digestion and everything, exactly. You want to be calm and rested. Well, Meadow, thank you so much for your wonderful, beautiful tips and your magical incantation and your wisdom, and I just look forward to cooking up some great things out of your book.
Thank you so much. It's been such a joy.
Thank you.
Bye.